Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TiECon 2013. I am Sandeep Bidasaria, Charter Member of TiE Hubli. I am very happy to see so many people sitting here in this hall for this program. It's really great to see the kind of enthusiasm that is present in the hall today, because a few years back in the management associations, we used to have similar programs. And I used to find the audience to be not more than 50 to 100. And today, we have 400 people sitting in this hall, and many more wanting to come inside. We are actually expecting 1,500 people in the evening program also. So overall, we'll be having almost 2,000 people for today's program. Basically, this shows the change that is happening in Hubli. Hubli is changing, my friends. Entrepreneurship is taking its root in Hubli. I'm very happy to be a part of this change. Before we go to the inauguration, please allow me to tell you a little about TiE and TiECon. TiE is the world's biggest NGO, and which has helped creation of immense wealth to the tune of $250 billion. Yes, my friends, you heard it right. TiE has created wealth of $250 billion. It has helped create the wealth up to the extent of $250 billion in last 20 years. Just to get a comparison, average GDP of India for the last 15 years is about $360 billion. With that comparison, you can see the immense impact that TiE has on development of entrepreneurs. TiE basically acts as a catalyst. It fosters and nurtures entrepreneurs around the globe. And Hubli is perhaps the smallest chapter in TiE family. TiE Hubli is one of the smallest, and it is only because of Mr. Gururaj Deshpande TiE Hubli could be formed. He belongs to Hubli. His heart is in Hubli. And only because of his personal interests and efforts, TiE Hubli came into existence. Thank you, Mr. Deshpande, for this gift to Hubli city that you have given. Thank you, sir. Why TiECon? What is the purpose of today's program? Basically, TiECon is here to provide a platform to all of us local entrepreneurs who would like to meet and interact with the national and global leaders. By meeting them, by listening to them, we get inspired, hopefully, and we hope to ignite the passion of entrepreneurship in Hubli by this particular conference. So we have a galaxy of legends, friends, with us today. We have visionaries, we have entrepreneurs, we have thought leaders, we have national leaders, we have global leaders with us. People like Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Narayana Murthy, Mr. Deshpande, Srini Rajam, Muruganathan, and many more people are here. All of these people are leaders in their own field, and they are either national leaders or global leaders. And they're all going to inspire us today by the talk that they give us. They'll tell us how they did it, and they will give us hints on how we can do it. So I'm sure all of us today are going to be listening to their words extremely carefully, very, very carefully. And I also promise you, friends, that by the time this day is over today, by the time you go home after the evening, you will carry with you a lot of ideas which will help you in making your business bigger and better. I'm sure about that. Without wasting any more time, let us start the momentous journey by inaugurating TiECon 2013. I invite Mr. Narayana Murthy and Mr. Gururaj Deshpande on the stage to light the lamp and formally inaugurate TiECon 2013. Please, sir. Murthy, Mr. Deshpande. And now I hand over the session to Mr. Deshpande, who is going to tell us about his vision of Hubli, and after which Mr. Narayana Murthy would be giving his keynote address today, the inaugural note. Thank you.
So how are you all doing? Okay. So, I think we have a pretty packed program today. We're going to talk to you a little bit now, and then we're going to go away, but then come back with Ratan Tata and Mashelkar and so on. And so in the evening, again, we'll have a very interesting session from 7 to 8. So, I think I want Murthy to talk a little bit more about how, what should Hubli do? And maybe I'll tell a little bit about what I see. Hubli, Davangere, Belgaum, Dharwad, if you put this sort of region together, we have roughly about 10 businesses that are like 1,000 crore plus. And then we probably have about 30 businesses in sort of 100 crore to 500 crore business. And then we have a lot of them in the 50, and then a lot of them in 5 crores. So, how should each of these businesses, and then we have a new crop, a whole bunch of companies that are just getting started, which is a new thing in Hubli that I've seen over the last 5 years. And so I think I and Murthy are going to try and sort of see if we can make comments as to how each of these businesses should look at their business. 5 years ago when I came here, when we started TiE, most of the businesses here pretty much kept to themselves. They were not interconnected. And the big thing that I see this time is in the last 2 days, I'm very impressed with the fact that there were 30 CEOs running around, putting chairs, sweeping the floor, setting the stage, really getting ready for TiE. And I saw the same excitement in those 30 people that they probably felt when they were doing their college gathering. And so let's give them a big hand, So the value of these functions is not so much what happens at the function, but what result it actually produces after the function. And the big part of that result is the fact that a lot of you are coming together and getting to be friends and getting to know each other's business, getting to know how to do things. And so most of the businesses that I saw when I used to come here earlier was a typical sort of a day for a business person here in Hubli would be, they would wake up in the morning, do their whatever they need to do, have their breakfast, and then go to work at 9 o'clock, come back home for lunch, have lunch, take a little nap, go back to work at 4 o'clock, and then come back home at 10, have dinner, go to bed. And this used to happen 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and forever. And they all actually did a pretty good business in terms of doing a bottom line and producing good profits and everything else. And all their kids would probably go to good schools and either here or somewhere else. But I somehow felt that was very restricting, both on a personal growth for themselves and for the company. The company has huge opportunity, but the company does not grow unless you have the ability to build processes, systems, management, and so on. And then it's not like we don't have talent in Hubli, because all the colleges now are producing pretty good talent, even though they could be doing a lot better. But all the best talent here does not stay here. They all go to Bangalore and Bombay and everything else. So on one hand, the businesses would say, well, these guys go away, they won't stay here. But on the other hand, the students would say, well, but there's no opportunities here. And so I think one of the big changes that I'm beginning to see, it's not, it's still a long way to go, is that each of these businesses are trying to focus on what's important for them, are trying to delegate, are trying to able to grow the businesses, and some of the growth has been pretty impressive. And so I think what I want you to carry away today, all of you, is how to actually build a sustainable business, financially, process-wise, management-wise. And so, I think I'll have Murthy comment a little bit on how do you run a large business. I personally am doing a lot more in nonprofits. I have a sandbox here. I have a sandbox in US, one in Canada, one in MIT, and a few businesses. So it's a lot of stuff going on. But at the same time, I don't do 7 days a week all the time. I think these things work only because there are people like Naveen Jha and Neelam and other people here who actually take on the responsibility and they make it their game and they work very hard. And you find people and talent and you delegate. And it's that part of it that actually allows them to grow, it allows you to grow, it allows the organization to grow. So anything you people can do to build teams, finding people, particularly young people who are not there yet, but you see the potential in them. Identifying people who have the potential and really growing those people, number one, they'll be very thankful to you because they didn't know that they could do those things. You have a good organization if every year when you look back, you say, I didn't know I could do this. And if everybody in your organization feels the same way, that they're doing things that are magical that they didn't know they could do, then you have a good organization. And that organization will do well. Because unless you have that leverage of a lot of very motivated people, hundreds of people doing lots of good things, things don't happen. So I think if I have to leave one message, whether it doesn't matter whether it's a young entrepreneurial company or a growing company, somehow focus on, number one, your own personal growth, but also the personal growth of very high potential people that you hire. When you get people who are smart, they ask questions, they don't agree with everything you say, and you don't want people who agree with everything you say. Because you have heard this, when there is two people who come together, if they agree on everything, one of them is useless, right? If they disagree on everything, both of them are useless. So your ability to get people who agree but also disagree, who get along, who both sign up for the same mission, is a crucial thing. And if that's one message I can leave with you for Hubli, I think the opportunity is huge. And today you'll hear from lots of people as to how in this globalization, just like things moved from Boston to Bangalore to Bombay and so on, things will continue to move from Bangalore to Hubli, Hubli to Shiggaon to next, or whatever. So it's because these places have advantages that the other places don't. But the only thing they don't have is the leadership, entrepreneurial energy, people who actually can think a little bit bigger, think out of the box, and look for those opportunities which haven't existed right now. And so with that message, I would like to hand over the microphone to Murthy and have him comment on what should all of you be thinking about. Murthy. Sure.
Thank you very much for inviting me here to be here today. It's wonderful to see so many entrepreneurs from Hubli. And as somebody who came to Hubli and spent most of his hours sleeping, that's what I used to do when I just got married and I came to Hubli. It is so nice to see that the entrepreneurial activity has picked up so well here in Hubli. We are at a very interesting stage in the history of the company. On the one hand, we see a very encouraging India, most of it in urban India. On the other hand, we see a very challenging India, mostly in rural India. But by and large, I would say we have all come to the conclusion that there is only one way to solve the problem of poverty in this country. This is a realization I had in 1974, and I'm glad that in India we have it today, or in the last 5-10 years. And that is, the only way you can solve the problem of poverty in any country is through creation of jobs with good income. And the only way you can create good jobs is through the power of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur converts an idea into jobs, into wealth. Wealth for himself, wealth for the nation, and wealth for his colleagues or her colleagues. So therefore, I think congratulations on embarking on this wonderful journey. Ravi asked me to speak on what is it that you entrepreneurs need to do in order to become sustainable, growing enterprises. I am not very familiar about what happens in Hubli, but I will share with you my own experience, and hopefully that should have some relevance to what you are doing. What I have found is that the sustainability of a business depends first on attracting, enabling, by that I mean training, preparing, empowering, by that I mean making sure that those people are in a position to add wealth to the organization, make the organization stronger, while making sure that their own lives are better. And finally, retaining the best and the brightest. So as long as you try and attract good people, your organization will grow from strength to strength. And as Ravi pointed out, good people are people who have a strong power of mind. They are people who will observe situations, they will collect data, they will analyze, and they will question you. Therefore, you should be in a position to answer those people. Asking them to shut up and do their work will make them go away from you. The best way I have found to create an environment of openness, an environment of harmony, is to use data and facts to decide on every situation. That is, if they came to you with an issue, if you have data and facts, if you ask them to substantiate with data and facts, if you showed to them that your idea, not their idea, is the correct one, they will accept it because it's based on data and facts. Second, create an environment where everybody's self-esteem is high, everybody's confidence is high, everybody's hope is high, and everybody sees a good future for themselves in continuing in your organization. In other words, you must paint a rainbow of the future possibilities and create confidence in them that they too can catch a part of that rainbow and put it in their pocket as they move forward. Translating it to simple words, they have to see betterment of their lives as you see betterment for the organization. Third, create a sense of fairness, create a sense of transparency and accountability in everything that you do in the organization. Because for thinking people, fairness, transparency, and accountability are extremely important. In everything that you do, don't use opacity. Lot of entrepreneurs, lot of small entrepreneurs, lot of one-man owners have a tendency to do this, and therefore they end up losing people. Second, in everything that you do, you have to bring improvement through the power of innovation. What do I mean by innovation? I remember in 1991 when I was sitting in my office, one of the janitors, his name is Chandrapa, he works even today in the organization, he came to me and said, Kannadalli, ಏನು ಸರ್ ನೀವೇನೇನೋ innovation ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರಾ, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಇದೇನು ಅಂತ. So I told him, don't worry, it's very simple. I said, sit down. I said, you are in charge of keeping 8 conference rooms clean. Every morning when you come, just ask the following questions. How can I clean these 8 conference rooms faster today than I did yesterday? Can I use a better cleaning cloth? Can I use a better way of going from one end of the room to the other end of the room? Can I use 2 hands with 2 cloths to clean parallelly? That's one. In other words, ask a question, how can I do what I am doing faster today compared to yesterday? Second, I said, you have to ask a question, how can you clean these 8 conference rooms cheaper today than yesterday? I said, what that means is, in your spare time, go to the market nearby and find out whether the market has released cheaper cleaning liquids. Second, find out if you can clean with less liquid today than yesterday. That will reduce the cost of cleaning. Third, I said, you have to ask the question, how can I improve the quality of my work today compared to yesterday? That again I said, yesterday if there were 10 specs on the table, see if you can reduce it to 9 specs today and 8 specs tomorrow. And the way to do it is show lot more focus and attention on what you're doing. Second, find out why those specs remain on the table. And tomorrow, do what you can to remove those. So, friends, what I'm saying is this, that if you want sustainability of your business, if you want growth of your business, then surround yourselves with smart people and ask those people to become more and more innovative. In other words, ask them to ask these 3 following questions which I said earlier, and that is, how can I do things faster today compared to yesterday? How can I do things cheaper today than yesterday? And how can I do things with better quality today than yesterday? The moment you create a mindset where everybody in the organization is focusing on these questions, it will become better and better. Second, if you want to grow in the onslaught of all these bigger companies in your area, bigger companies in Bangalore, bigger companies in India, bigger companies coming from countries like China, etc., etc., there's only one way that you can continue to grow, you can continue to sustain, and that is by creating differentiation in the mind of the customer about your product, about your service, about how you deal with the customer. That differentiation is what will retain customers for you in spite of lots of competition. In order to create differentiation, again, you have to use innovation. That's the only instrument you have. And innovation comes from only one thing, that is the power of mind. Therefore, attracting and enabling and empowering and retaining the best and the brightest is the only sure way to sustaining your organization and growing your organization. Now let me get to the final important point. I don't want to speak too long. As Ravi was pointing out, as you grow, as you become bigger and bigger, you have to accept the fact that some people will leave your organization. Because when you are small, it is possible for you to show personal attention to each of your colleagues. You can retain that wonderful connection with each of your colleagues. But as you grow, it will not be possible. When, for example, when we were 500 people, we would all meet in our cafeteria. Different days I would sit with different people at different tables and spend time. But I realized when we became 50,000 people, there was no way I could do that. First of all, they were not all in the same place. So in that case, you need to create messengers of confidence, hope, affection, bond. And once you have many messengers who carry your ideas, who carry your message to these groups, then there is a likelihood that people will bond with the spirit of the organization. Second, so far as operations are concerned, as Ravi pointed out, you have to use systems, processes, and technology. And at some stage, in certain activities, you must first make the organization people independent, and second, you must have a good succession planning. Even as a small organization, in certain critical areas, you must have a good succession planning. At all points of time, you must accept that one of your critical people may not come into the office tomorrow morning, and still the organization will go ahead. And to do that, you have to have succession planning. I think, I can go on and on because creating differentiation is a very important topic, but I don't want to spend any more time on that. But as I said before, the fact that we have all realized that the only instrument we have to solve the problem of poverty in this country is entrepreneurship, and the only way entrepreneurship can succeed is through the power of an idea with lots of good people coming together to pursue that idea. Therefore, I think that journey has begun. That journey has indeed found a very hospitable climate here, thanks to Ravi, thanks to TiECon and others. And therefore, I wish every one of you the best of everything. But remember that differentiation and the power of high-quality people is what will make your organization indeed a unique one. It will help you sustain in the face of onslaught from all kinds of companies. Thanks.
So we can take some questions. By the way, a lot of you get very confused between this Desh and Gururaj. But I do have to admit, at home they do call me Ravi. So when Murthy refers to me as Ravi, I have 3 names. So that is just to confuse you guys. So we have about 15-20 minutes. So why don't you raise your hands and maybe you can stand up and...
I'm Purnima Shenoy. I head a startup called Latitude in Bangalore. I wanted to ask Mr. Murthy, how do startups focus on differentiating, especially if you're early stage?
Well, so many times youngsters come to me and say, we want to start another software services company. I tell them don't do it because bigger companies have built so many entry barriers. For example, we have 30 million square feet of office space. We have 22,000 crores of cash in the bank. You know, we have 150,000 people. We have 1,200 customers. They said that is not the right way to do, because if you start on that, it's very tough. On the other hand, if you say that, look, I am going to be in a niche area in software services, it could be specialized engineering design using a special package. Or it could be in some aspect of telecom. It could be in some aspect of ERP, wherein bigger companies will not be able to compete with you. That's one. The second, when Ravi started his second company, which was Cascade Networks, it was making frame relay switches in the US. So I asked him, look, Nortel, AT&T, there were many, many companies, much, much bigger, which were working or which had in the laboratory these frame relay switch design, etc. I said, what is it? What makes you think you will succeed? He said, I will succeed because of my speed, because I will complete it so fast, because I have people who will spend 18 hours, and these big organizations will never. That's exactly what happened. His Cascade Communications succeeded because the bigger organizations were slow. So therefore, the moral of the story is, you as a startup entrepreneur, if you focused on some niche idea and speed, then I believe you have a very high probability of success.
I'm MS Vidasaria. I'm in Hubli for quite some time. We are having a steel plant and doing very economically. My question is, my experience says that smarter people are more attrition prone and very ambitious. So for a bigger organization which is employing 80,000 people or 50,000 people, if 5 people or 10 people leave, that probably doesn't matter. For a smaller entrepreneur, if they are employing only 5 or 10 people, and if they are attrition prone, if they are ambitious, if they leave you, you have spent your time, you have spent your money, you have spent your everything on them. And ultimately they go away, either they start their own, we wish them very well, but at the same time, what happens to the organization which is already present? Could you kindly elucidate?
Sure. So, I think it's a question of, if you hire very ambitious people, your growth has to be fast enough to accommodate their ambition. If you cannot accommodate their ambition, then it's a wrong hire. And in fact, I think Vivek Pawar, who was the president of TiE last year, and he's going to be speaking today, I think, and he's probably the most qualified person to talk about how to grow talent within Hubli that you can retain. Because he is in probably the most competitive, very high end of the market, VLSI design and so on. So if he hires people and trains them, they all look for opportunities in Bangalore and they want to go there, right? So he needs to hire the special group of people who really love living in Hubli and also develop talent. In fact, he's doing a program together with our foundation called Susandhi Sankalp, where he's taking very, very bright PUC final pass students who are very bright but do not have the financial means to actually go to engineering colleges. And so he runs a program for a year or two and trains them, and they become some of his best employees. So I think, like Murthy was saying, for every problem that you have, if you think hard about it, there is an innovative solution. But you cannot just, I think the mindset in Hubli, that's where I'm seeing a big change in the mind shift in Hubli. Every time there's a problem, they say, well, this is a problem, let's see what we can do with it, and come up with an innovative solution. As opposed to the previous approach, where they were good enough to identify the problem, but then they would stop at just complaining about it. You know, they would say, I can't build a business because everybody goes to Bangalore, kind of thing. So I think number one, we have to admit the problem, like you're sort of identify the problem. And then I think we have to come up with some innovative solutions. And this is not a problem local to Hubli. It's you know, retaining talent in Bangalore is extremely hard. Retaining talent in Silicon Valley is the worst. Because the opportunities are so many, most of the time people sort of drive up to your parking lot and next thing you know, they're parking in some other parking lot. Because the opportunities are so many, right? And so the retaining good talent and creating opportunities for everybody is always a challenge. So one of the best things you could do is to constantly keep pumping in new talent into the organization. So you know, I mean, that's what Infosys does. I mean, they have a huge training program and everything else, and most of the good companies. And these young people who come in and they train and they can leave. But before they leave, as long as they've contributed, it's okay. And in fact, the best companies are the ones which have become the source of the most number of companies. You know, if you look at the Silicon Valley, you know, Intel is one of the very successful companies. Cisco is a very successful company. It's those companies from where people have left and started other companies that have become giants. And it creates a whole ecosystem for the whole region. So I think smart people leaving, either you create enough opportunity for them or they leave. And when they leave, you can still maintain a very good relationship with them. In fact, that's one of the key things. I mean, because good, smart people, when they leave, typically they do good things. They generate good companies, they become customers, they become partners, they become technology partners or whatever. So I think maintaining good relationship with good people is always a good thing for the region.
Let me give you a practical example of what Ravi said. If you have a set of people who can think and come out with an innovative solution, the most difficult problem can be solved. What I'm going to describe was the biggest problem that we faced and perhaps the Indian software industry faced. See, in the early 80s when we started, we would go to our prospects in the United States. We had very little money. We used to stay in absolutely third-rate hotels, seedy places, and we would walk to the place. Sometimes we would take buses. You know, this is in big towns, Boston and places like that, where it was not easy. And then when we would go there, the customer, the prospect would meet us, and finally he would say, look, friend, thank you very much for coming all the way, etc., etc. I would say the usual good words and then say, look, it is very difficult for us to work with you because when it is morning in the US, it is night in India. When it is morning in India, it's night in the US. Therefore, we are literally as different as day and night. And there is no possibility of working together. Please don't call us, we'll call you. And we would, some of the good guys would perhaps give you a cup of coffee or whatever it is, and then you go. So we would do this, you know, with lot of difficulty, very little money, going in economy, sitting from Bangalore to Bombay, Bombay to whatever, Boston, and come back, we'd say, man, this is impossible. So we sat down and we said, look, India and US are as different as day and night. We have to solve this problem. So we sat down and we came out of there. with what I thought was a brilliant solution. We came out with the concept of 24-hour productive day. So what we said was, when it is, well, let the American employees of our prospects, they come to the office at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, they leave at 5:30. They would have had several issues with their software. And they would send, those days there was no internet and all of that. They would send a fax to us saying these are the problems and please go ahead and solve. And we would come at our time 7:45 in the morning. We would start working on these problems. By our time 5:36 or 7, we would finish and we would send a fax saying these are the solutions. We will have one person sitting in the prospect's office. So we took this idea and presented it to the customer and showed him how, when the customer is actually sleeping, the prospect is actually sleeping, their employees are actually sleeping, we were working because of this advantage of these time zone differences, and therefore customer is effectively getting a 24-hour workday. Next time when we made the presentation, oh, this is brilliant, we never thought of this. Oh, why don't we start it tomorrow morning? So the point and the reality was, in very few cases we actually used this idea, but we got the door open, we entered, and we got huge opportunities. So the point I'm making is, no problem is unsolvable as long as you put the power of bright minds to use.
And also, as Murthy was saying, it's a question of collecting facts, right? So if smart people leave because they're totally unhappy with the whole thing and they walk out and they're mad at you, then there's something wrong with the company, with the environment that you have. If they leave because they want to go for higher education, that's a good thing. If they want to leave because they have a great idea and they want to start another company, that's a good thing. You may want to buy equity into that company. You may want to support him. You want to help him. So I think it's really looking at the facts and seeing why you have the problem. So it's not a problem if your smart people leave for the right reason. But if you have involuntary attrition, where a lot of the good people are leaving because they just don't like the culture, they don't like the way you treat them, then there's something wrong with the company that you need to fix.
Now we get back to your girl.
The desire to hear to these legends will be endless.
Yeah, I
we
know.
can go on listening to them for the whole day.
Yeah.
But we need to be fair to the other speakers also. So I would request you to please keep this as the last question.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Deshpande, Mr. Murthy.
I said a lady.
A lady, please.
Lady. Looks like we have given enough chance for them.
No, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for considering ladies first. And my name is Jayashree Shivkumar, and you are our beloved role models of entrepreneurship in whole India. So I would like to ask you, entrepreneurship is entrepreneurship. So why do people differentiate between women entrepreneurship and regular entrepreneurship? And if it is so, because both of them have to face same problems no matter what they do. So in your perspective, how do you differentiate in this two different entrepreneurship? And if it is so, what are your guidelines for women?
Well, actually, you're absolutely right. It's only women who actually think that it's different, right? I mean, but, so, what I've seen this thing happen in a lot of the TiE chapters is that this special interest group for women entrepreneurship gets started. And it's true, they do have some family responsibilities and everything else that they have to worry about. But usually these special interest groups last for a year or two, and after that they just get merged. And a lot of times they just take over TiE anyway. And so I think my hope is that in Hubli, I think you have a pretty strong group of women entrepreneurs right now. So it's okay for you to be a special interest group and think it's different for another 6 months, a year. After that, my hope is that you'll just take over TiE, and then men can have their own special interest group.
The stage, sir, please allow me to present a token of appreciation from TiE Hubli to both of you. So this memento that we have given you is a very special memento. It contains Dharwad pedas and some soap which is made by special children of school called Ushas, which have special needs. I'm sure you'll like the soap, sir. Thank you.